They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but in the music world, it can lead to controversy and ridicule. From shamelessly copying iconic bands to riding the coattails of more successful artists, these infamous rip-off bands became notorious for all the wrong reasons. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 most infamous rip-off bands ever. Get ready for stories of uncanny similarities, legal battles, and public backlash that rock the music industry. But before we start, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos like this. Let's start from number 10. George Harrison, My Sweet Lord versus the Chiffons, He's So Fine. When George Harrison, the ex-Beatle, released My Sweet Lord in 1970, it became a massive hit, marking the first solo #1 single for any of the Beatles. However, it wasn't long before the song was entangled in legal issues. The melody of My Sweet Lord was alleged to bear a striking resemblance to He's So Fine by the girl group The Chiffons, released in 1963. The lawsuit was brought by Bright Tunes Music Corporation, which owned the rights to He's So Fine. Harrison's defense was that he had unintentionally copied the song, describing it as a subconscious plagiarism. The court ruled against Harrison, and he was ordered to pay damages, though the amount was reduced after allegations that his manager had been involved in misconduct during the lawsuit. This case became a landmark in the world of music copyright infringement, showing just how closely music can resemble one another, even unintentionally. Number 9. Coldplay, Viva La Vida versus Creaky Boards. Accusations of plagiarism are not uncommon in the music industry, and Coldplay found themselves facing such allegations in 2008 when their hit single Viva La Vida was compared to the songs I Didn't Write by the anti-folk duo Creaky Boards. The similarities between the two tracks were striking, and the lead singer of Creaky Boards, Andrew Huffner, accused Coldplay of hearing the song during one of their concerts and subsequently ripping it off. However, Huffner later backtracked, admitting that both bands may have been influenced by the same source, the music from Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda series. Despite Huffner's retraction, the accusations still linger, and the entire incident left a bad taste in the mouths of many music fans who felt that plagiarism was involved. Number 8. Katy Perry, Roar versus Sarah Bareilles' Brave. In 2013, Katy Perry's song Roar became a global anthem for self-empowerment. However, the song's similarity to Sarah Bareilles' Brave, which was released earlier, stirred up significant controversy. Both songs had remarkably similar melodies, and the messages they conveyed were almost identical, encouraging listeners to find their inner strength and speak up for themselves. The comparisons were so striking that mashup videos were created online, illustrating the parallelism between the two songs. Despite the uproar, both artists were cordial with each other, with Sarah Bareilles tweeting "All love, everybody all love." Still, many listeners felt that Roar was a direct copy of Brave, especially considering the undeniable similarities between the two. The controversy sparked discussions about the music industry's tendency to blur the lines between inspiration and imitation. While many fans of both artists chose sides, both songs ultimately achieved success, with Roar topping the charts globally and Brave earning praise for its empowering message. Both Perry and Bareilles have since moved on, and while the shadow of the Roar versus Brave debate lingers in music history, the artists' professional relationship has remained positive. Their ability to handle the situation with grace demonstrated the complexities of the music business and the challenges of protecting creative work. Number 7. The Beatles, Come Together versus Chuck Berry's You Can't Catch Me. The Beatles' Come Together is one of their most iconic songs, but it was not without its controversies. In 1969, Chuck Berry, the father of rock and roll, claimed that John Lennon had lifted his song, You Can't Catch Me, for the Beatles' hit. The two songs shared strikingly similar lyrics and melodies, particularly the line, Here Come Old Flat Top. The case was brought to court, and while the Beatles did not face severe penalties, Lennon eventually agreed to record 3 songs for Chuck Berry's publisher, Morris Levy, as part of a settlement. While the resolution may have been relatively light, it was clear that the Beatles had borrowed heavily from Berry's work, especially given the prominent riff in Come Together that had echoes of Berry's style. Despite the legal settlement, the controversy didn't tarnish the reputation of Come Together, which went on to become one of the Beatles' most enduring tracks. Yet, the case serves as a reminder of how even the most influential artists can find themselves entangled in legal disputes over creative ownership. Barry's influence on Lennon was undeniable, but Come Together became a defining track of the 1960s, proving that innovation in music often involves both inspiration and imitation. The settlement only added to the lore surrounding the Beatles' legendary status. Number 6. Nirvana, Come As You Are versus Killing Joke's 80s. Nirvana's Come As You Are from their 1991 album, Nevermind, became one of the most influential rock songs of the 1990s. However, Killing Joke, a British post-punk band, sued Nirvana, claiming that the riff in Come As You Are was strikingly similar to their song 80s. The riff in Nirvana's track was almost identical to that of Killing Joke's, though Nirvana's version was slowed down. The lawsuit was eventually settled, and Dave Grohl, the drummer of Nirvana, later performed with Killing Joke on their 2003 album. Despite the settlement, Nirvana's borrowed riff remains a significant point of contention in the world of music plagiarism. The case stirred up debates about the fine line between musical inspiration and plagiarism, especially in the grunge scene, where borrowing from other genres was commonplace. Fans of both bands remained divided, with some dismissing the similarities as mere coincidence, while others felt that Nirvana's success benefited from an uncredited riff. Nirvana's relationship with Killing Joke may have been strained at first, but the eventual collaboration between the two bands suggested a level of reconciliation. The controversy, while unresolved for some, added another layer to the mythos surrounding Nirvana's revolutionary influence on music. Number 5. Rod Stewart, Do You Think I'm Sexy? Versus Georgie Baines' Taj Mahal. Rod Stewart's Do You Think I'm Sexy? Was one of the biggest hits of 1978, but it wasn't without controversy. The song, which incorporated a catchy synthesizer riff, was accused of ripping off Taj Mahal by Brazilian musician Georgie Baines. Stewart himself admitted in his 2012 autobiography that he had been influenced by the song, which he heard while at the Rio Carnival in 1978. In addition to this, Stewart also acknowledged that the song's synthesizer riff was taken from Bobby Womack's If You Want My Love. Stewart settled the case out of court, but the plagiarism accusations remained a part of his legacy, particularly in the early years of his solo career. Despite the legal issues, Do You Think I'm Sexy? Became one of Stewart's most commercially successful songs. It reached the top of the charts in multiple countries and solidified Stewart's place as one of the era's most enduring pop stars. However, the controversy over the song's origins remained a blemish on an otherwise stellar career. Stewart's ability to bounce back from the accusations showcased his resilience in an industry where such disputes are all too common. Number 4. Ray Parker Jr., Ghostbusters versus Huey Lewis and the News' I Want a New Drug. Ray Parker Jr. was thrust into a plagiarism lawsuit following the release of his 1984 hit Ghostbusters, which became the theme song for the hit movie of the same name. Huey Lewis and the News sued Parker, claiming that the song bore significant similarities to their 1983 hit, I Want a New Drug. The lawsuit was settled out of court, but the story didn't end there. In 2001, Parker sued Lewis after Lewis discussed the settlement on VH1's Behind the Music. The case continued to be a contentious issue, with both sides claiming that their song had been copied. Despite the legal battles, Ghostbusters became one of the most iconic songs of the 1980s, while I Want a New Drug remains a classic in its own right. The lawsuit not only brought attention to the issue of plagiarism, but also sparked conversations about how much influence and inspiration can be deemed acceptable in the music industry. In the years since, Ghostbusters has become synonymous with the film and the 1980s, while I Want a New Drug remains a beloved track. Both songs are still celebrated today, despite their contentious history. The episode highlights the thin line artists walk between inspiration and imitation. Number 3. Led Zeppelin, Whole Lotta Love versus Muddy Waters' You Need Love. Led Zeppelin is known for their pioneering work in rock and heavy metal, but their reputation was tarnished in the 1980s when they were sued for plagiarism by the estate of blues legend Muddy Waters. The lawsuit centered around the song "Whole Lotta Love," which was accused of borrowing from Waters' 1962 track, "You Need Love." The case was settled with Willie Dixon, the songwriter of "You Need Love," being officially credited as a co-writer of "Whole Lotta Love." Despite the legal resolution, Led Zeppelin's borrowing of material from blues legends became a point of contention in their legacy, even though the band's musical influence remains undeniable. While the settlement acknowledged Dixon's contribution, many fans and critics continued to question how much Led Zeppelin had truly borrowed from their predecessors, particularly given the band's massive success. The case also sparked a broader conversation about the ethics of musical influence and whether bands like Led Zeppelin had taken too much from artists who were less commercially recognized. Despite this, Led Zeppelin's influence on rock music remains unparalleled, although the issue of their borrowing practices still lingers in the minds of some critics. Number 2. Tame Impala. Feels Like We Only Go Backwards versus Pablo Ruiz's Oh No. Tame Impala, the psychedelic project led by Kevin Parker, faced accusations of plagiarism regarding their hit "Feels Like We Only Go Backwards." The track was claimed to have striking similarities to the 1989 song "Oh No" by Argentine musician Pablo Ruiz. The similarities were deemed too noticeable to dismiss, prompting Ruiz's legal team to consider taking action. While the case did not escalate into a full-blown lawsuit, the fact that Ruiz was considering legal action raised eyebrows in the music industry. Kevin Parker himself never acknowledged the accusation publicly, leading fans to wonder how much of the song was influenced by Ruiz's track, either consciously or subconsciously. This case is an example of the increasing awareness of international musical influences and how easily such influence can lead to legal complications, particularly when two tracks seem too similar to be purely coincidental. The case also highlighted the complexities of modern music, where artists often borrow elements from a broad spectrum of genres and cultures, leading to potential disputes over originality and credit. Number 1. Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars, Uptown Funk versus The Sequence's Funk You Up. Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars was one of the most successful songs of 2014, topping charts worldwide. However, it was soon accused of plagiarizing "Funk You Up," a 1979 song by the female hip-hop group The Sequence. The Sequence alleged that the similarities between Uptown Funk and their track were undeniable, particularly the catchy bass line and the funky vibe. In 2018, The Sequence filed a lawsuit claiming that Uptown Funk had borrowed too heavily from their song, even though "Funk You Up" had not been a major hit when it was released. While the lawsuit was still ongoing, it highlighted the growing trend of older songs being rediscovered and the potential for legal action as a result of these retro influences. The case also brought attention to how older, less commercially successful songs from earlier decades are now being recognized and re-examined for their influence on more contemporary hits. This legal clash raised questions about the power of newer artists rediscovering and drawing inspiration from forgotten classics. The ongoing case also sparked debate about the originality of mainstream pop music, with critics suggesting that much of the genre's sound could be traced back to past hits that have been reworked and revitalized for modern audiences. This case underscores the evolving nature of musical influences and copyright law in today's industry. So, what do you think? Is imitation ever justified? Or should bands strive for originality no matter what? Share your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the fascinating and sometimes scandalous stories of the music industry. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay creative, and always celebrate authentic artistry.